Hey everybody, welcome to today's episode of the Wonder Soul Show. Today's guest is Barton from @AskBarton on Instagram. He runs the company Upgraded Formulas. Today's conversation is all about his history of developing essentially nanotechnology in a supplement form for minerals. And we get really deep into a lot of these concepts where he mentions that all you really need to live is body fat, sunlight, water, and minerals. And with that, you can produce anything else that your body needs to thrive and have an amazing life. He even talks about how he did an 11-day fast himself and lots of other fun topics, including maybe a tea that increases testosterone for men and women completely naturally. That should be out by the time you're hearing this, and it'll be hopefully given out as a demo at the Wonder Soul Festival with certain maybe unexpected consequences of that are positive, which we'll get into at the very end of the interview. So hope you enjoy this.
Okay.
We're drinking this Mountain Valley water right now, and we have full bottles. And this parts per million is supposed to be really high in mineral density. And theoretically, if I just drank tap water, but I drink enough water, I should be hydrated, right? Because that's what hydration is, isn't it? Just drinking water.
Is this a trick question?
Yes. But I don't know enough to educate people on this, but I think you might. So let's get into that. What is hydration?
Hydration is, well, let's talk about what the minerals are that hydrate us. Sodium is a hydration mineral. Potassium, magnesium, these are hydration minerals. These are also adrenal minerals. And when we think of hydration, we should pretty quickly think about energy or a lack of energy, right? So when we have none of those, we are certainly not hydrated. And one way you can think of hydration is either you can think of these as connected or related concepts. I think, I have this view that everything's connected if you look closely enough. And certainly when you are hydrated enough, when you have enough water and enough minerals, your body, the ultimate result you're looking at is making your body the most optimal electrolyte or electricity output machine, right? Making your body the most electrically optimized machine, right? So you want the maximum amplitude and voltage from the body. So there's a great book called The Body Electric. There's a book called The Salt Fix that talks about some of this.
Wow, we need to geek out really hard on this.
Yeah, most of us just don't get enough salt if we are eating a clean diet. Most of us. And I've done enough back when I still did all the consults myself before I had the full team of practitioners that were doing consultations and guiding people. I could tell from someone's voice, and I still can usually, because I would do phone calls then, because a lot of people weren't, tech savvy enough to do Zoom calls. So especially some of the older population that would work with us. And I could tell, and then I got this pattern of looking at their hair test results and hearing their voice and understanding what they were deficient in as a pattern through voice. As crazy as that sounds, I've hardly ever talked about that too.
I'm really curious.
Yeah.
What are the patterns in the voice?
That would be hard for me to describe.
Am I mineral deficient?
Right. But what I'm getting at is, so a funny story is a friend of mine, now a friend, someone I met just recently. She's like, oh, by the way, she's like, you remember when we first met? And then she's like, so what am I deficient in? And you paused for like 11 seconds, and then you're like, sodium. and I totally forgot that happened. And she's like, and the crazy thing is you're right. She's like, I never told you that, but you're right. She's like, for all these reasons, and eating clean being one, working out too much being another, but actually having her minerals tested recently and seeing that, and knowing a lot about the field and everything. So just a funny little side note. Yeah. About hydration. And
now you said that people don't get enough salt if they're eating clean and they're working out. But when you say salt, I don't think you just mean sodium. You mean...
Right. Oh, and funny thing too, before we forget, sodium we can talk about later, just come back to, if you will, is how sodium and other minerals influence your personality and how that's measurably so and reversible. good news is it's reversible for those of you that are like, you know what, I have some improving I could do.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
What type of personality changes are we thinking?
So what we call bipolar disorder, like, oh man, she's so crazy. That could be fixable.
What minerals does that tend to be?
So if take your sodium to potassium ratio, if that's lower than a certain point, usually about 1.4 ratio, then and you want it optimally to be about a 2.5. If it's 1.4 or lower, then someone's at least internally going to feel that shiftiness inside of them that outwardly we call like bipolar, that swing. Yeah.
Fascinating.
Mm-hmm. There's a lack of safety, and there's a lack of energy production.
Yeah.
And a lack of hydration. And
this is so interesting because the dojo and what we do is we're literally working with people's bodies to harmonize the electricity of their body so that it's all flowing harmoniously. Not that anything is higher or lower in flow, but it's all harmonized or at an equilibrium where everything is matching, right? That's why we call it body coherence. We call it electrical coherence in the body. And that is a measurable thing. And it's really fascinating all the different ways you can measure that and how it can impact it in different ways. And of course, there are some people who have to work a lot harder to get to that electrical coherence, or that coherence is actually at a lower amplitude, which is something you said earlier, where you want the highest amplitude possible, which I agree with. However, there's so many requiring components for that, right? And minerals being maybe the most important one, because electricity only moves through things that are conductive. And so it's water and minerals. But because most of the body is water, if you just sent voltage through it, it would just go everywhere. And the way that, to my knowledge, the body organizes that electricity is through putting these minerals in certain alignments, which is totally insane when you start to study how that happens. So if you're...
minerals activate all the enzymatic processes in the body. So they're pretty important. So sunlight, minerals, water, your body can make everything else if you have enough body fat. That's why the world record for fasting is over 380 days. Don't try this at home, particularly if you don't have enough fat. A very, very obese man, I don't know, a while ago. Yeah. But
incredible.
Recently enough. Yeah.
Okay. So then talk to me about, because most people, they'll take a magnesium or they'll take a mineral supplement or even electrolyte like Element or something like that. What's this path that you've gone down where you guys do the hair testing to get more specific with people?
Yeah. So what I realized 12 years ago was that the minerals I had my whole family taking were not being absorbed. And I realized that thanks to a hair test and a great consultation too, with someone that really knew his stuff. He's since retired, but was able to learn so much there and enough to really get hooked in this area. And it became really clear to me that something had to be improved, because at first it was very hope inspiring. Oh, there's something to work on. But pretty quickly, I realized, we're taking, like almost in the same breath, I realized, we're taking a lot of these things and we're chronically low, and we've been taking them for a period of either 6 weeks to 3 months to a year and a half. And, we're still chronically low in things like magnesium, manganese, potassium, chromium, you name it. And you don't want to see low levels, but what that means is that all your symptoms stay, and all those personality hangups and what I mean by that is when you have low energy levels, right? And something I'm writing about in my book is just how you show up is totally dependent on how much energy you have. And that's totally dependent on everything we're talking about today. And then that becomes a habit. And then obviously, as we know from so many books published lately, habits then become your personal reality or personality. And it's just beautiful to think about. And ultimately, I use my background as a chemical engineer and this experience with, I was born to parents in their 40s, and I was helping my mom in my early 20s, and she long story short, she died, and everyone, including me, failed her. Is how I internalized it, and I being at peace with that was one thing, but knowing that, hey, if I didn't figure it out, the same thing would happen to me or you or anyone else I cared about. That the energy was very equivalent. The amount of energy was equivalent to what we would achieve in life, and how long we would live, and how well we would live, and how much freedom we would have. I got to see her become super dependent on doctors and medication, and obviously that wasn't the answer. As a good friend of mine said in med school, he realized one of the most just demoralizing things he ever realized was that nothing he was going to do through learning medication, which was most of his schooling, was ever going to get someone well, and might keep them alive but not get them well. So where are we? So anyway, I think that covers it.
Yeah, really fascinating story here. This arc of, let's say, having been a very active person,
Mm-hmm.
right? But still doing these hair tests, having these energy issues, having all these various issues yourself, while your mom was also having her, essentially dying crisis, and trying to do all the right things, but not seeing consistently different results.
And she was healthy too, right? That was the crazy thing, that, like it was like what most people hope for in retirement. Like, just retire, like cruising, low stress, wake up when you want to. She'd like to wake up early, go out in the garden, read for a couple hours, go visit with, like, great life, But then medication leads to more medication, leads to surgery. In many cases, leads to removing an organ or something. More medication, and then gone. So that's a pattern I don't want to see people repeat from particularly if I can see that so clearly that it can be avoided. And so clearly, sorry to interrupt, but the thing that I realized is, if this is your chart of minerals, then your overall levels and amounts go down with age as you age, and the phrase "all cause mortality" is correlated with low mineral status. So that's something to think about. So all deaths, right?
Yeah, and then when you say correlated, you mean like 100% of the time?
Yeah, well,
aside from maybe acute circumstances.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. Would never say 100%, but you know what I mean. Like a large, like there's a direct correlation. And why? Well, like you talked about with Flow Dojo, and having lots of energy. Imagine if your cells have lots of energy. Now imagine if your cells have very little energy. How the body becomes a toxic waste dump. How those cells, which make up organs, which make up your body, then it's like their own little solar systems, right? And those little solar systems, those cells, are happy when they're producing energy. And when they're producing energy, they're detoxing well. So then you have a clean house, you're happy. But, if you can't detox well, the cells are not happy. When the cells are not happy, disease starts to happen. When the cells are happy, they have enough energy and they detox well. They actually detox heavy metals more easily, and heavy metals do not cling to the body electromagnetically nearly as easily when you sort out your mineral deficiencies through this process, is what I realized. So the problem again, though, was that the minerals weren't absorbing very well. So that's what I spent the last quite a while working on.
Is there a single most common deficiency that you see in all the hair testing?
There are many most commons. The thing is, like, what's most important for that person based on the symptom that they want to change. Like, there's many people that are missing the blood sugar minerals, or they're missing.
Is that like chromium?
That's a great one. Yeah, chromium. Manganese is another that most people don't know. Manganese does a lot that I think people aren't aware of, and most people are deficient in it.
And then why are we so deficient in these minerals now? Like you said, even especially you said healthy people.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, healthy people that are really driven are burning a lot, right? And then unhealthy people that have a ton of trauma are also burning a lot, even though they're not doing much. And you can burn a lot just through anxiety, right? So what I call your in-place, your like at your desk redlining situation, that's still burning a lot. You just aren't having a good life. Now, if you love running and you're out there running a lot, logging 10 miles a day or whatever, at least you're getting high off running and you enjoy that, so that's cool. It's still probably really hard on your body. I think we know that pretty conclusively now. The the first guy that ran a marathon died, so it's not easy, I would say. But in either case is really what I'm saying, right? That there's just, it's like that. What did we learn in like third grade? Like energy in equals energy out, or that balance. I forget how they said it. Like energy can neither be created nor destroyed was like the most basic way to say that. Now there's like ultra complicated energy balances that we learn in thermodynamics and chemical engineering, and all of that applies to everything that we do. And, ultimately I just realized that, well, instead of creating a different industrial process for a major oil company, I could do it for minerals and have a, pretty cool company that I cared a lot about that solved a lot of problems. And now we donate to charity water. I think pretty soon we're going to start shifting a lot to also donate to some mental health organizations, because so much, like we're in this conversation of nutrition becoming personality, is like more and more what I like to talk about. And because I think it's less obvious than we're going to get you more energy so you can go and compete in whatever thing you want to do physically, which is cool. But I think right now, more than ever, people need support in this realm of mental health.
Is there a particular mineral blend that like everyone should be taking even before the hair test?
Yeah. So we have this foundational pack. I know we haven't talked about this, but that's on the website on the homepage. And so you can find that at Upgraded Formulas.
What's in the foundational pack?
So that is our upgraded memory, which is 5 minerals that I've seen most people be deficient in, first of all, from looking at so many tests throughout the years, that are also synergistic and or absorbed well now through this technology. So so that's in there, zinc's in there, magnesium's in there, potassium's in there. And I think one of the most important things for people to understand is that everything you learned that's been taught in about the last decade about forms of minerals, particularly magnesium, chromium, things like that, they'll list off a couple and they'll say these are good for this. You don't have to remember any of that, and that also doesn't apply to anything we do. And also just try it and you'll see that, well, you got more deep sleep than the thing that you're taking that's supposed to be good for sleep. And then this also, upgrade magnesium, also stopped your cramps. And anyway, I don't mean for it to be I'm just giving examples, So yeah, it's profound for all of these things. Like we have people double their deep sleep. I don't know of any other product on the market that can do that.
And what you hinted at earlier, that the only thing we need to live is sunlight, minerals, and water, right?
Mm-hmm. And enough body fat.
Enough body fat. Yeah. So if I just eat bacon all day and then sunlight, minerals, and water, I should be good.
I mean, that is questionable.
Really, really high quality bacon.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, your own stored bacon, I did an 11-day fast with water and mineral, sunlight, and just body fat to heal an injury that I had then. I immediately didn't eat until it healed. And
what was the injury?
Which is not advice for people. I feel like I should say that. But I had a partially pulled hamstring for just, doing some sprints with some friends out at Zilker. So, yeah. So that was interesting. And then I had deep knee bruise. We started throwing the football around, and wet grass just like slipped, and I had this like, I was like, wow, okay, something. I guess I'm getting the sign to slow down, or so. Anyway, didn't really slow down, but I did get a month's worth of work done in the next 11 days, and then I just like chose to eat on the 11th day. That's fine. Yeah. So actually leading a fasting retreat at the request of a friend out in Joshua Tree soon. Because I think it's so much easier to do it with a group.
How long is it going to be?
This one's only 3 days, which is, I told her, I was like, that's really just the pain period. After that, it's like bliss and ease. But yeah, let's do 3. So.
Okay. So talk to me about the technology side of this, the absorption side of this. And I know this gets really geeky, so I'm excited about that.
Sure.
How did you get to because I'm assuming what you were doing is you guys started taking the minerals, finding out what you were deficient in, and then you took those minerals and you were like, cool, still super deficient.
Mm-hmm.
Tried like a more bioavailable form, still super deficient. Tried a more bioavailable, kept getting crazier until you're like, what's wrong here? How did you make the leap from the best you could find to creating what you've made now? And what exactly is that?
Yeah, so luckily I have a story video out for people to describe that I think you just got to see, but I love the question. So I mean, you have to understand, so this probably like seems like a huge leap for people, but going to school, I just so happened to have gone to school for the exact solution to this. Like chemists don't do this, doctors don't do this, nutritionists don't do this. No one, like physicists don't do this. Chemical engineering is a blend of all of those things, really. And it's really taking an industrial process and looking at the chemistry that's required, the physics that's required, and I truly mean that, the math, so much math required to take something and improve the output, usually like a distillation tower, or it could be anything really. And we had a focus on nanotechnology, and I just remember being really enamored with the possibilities. I mean, they were talking about making space. We did a segment once where we had to prove that you could use carbon nanotubes to make a space elevator, to make an elevator that went to space. And it turns out, like, yes, you can. Which we knew, and we had to sort of like prove that mathematically. And you're talking like 8-page proofs, just insane, like differential equations. If anyone has a minor in math, it's a lot. And so looking at that, I realized, okay, so the end product is a certain particle size. And then I was like, well, knowing enough about biology too, the red blood cells transport nutrients throughout the body. So my goal then became, it's like when you have an appropriate goal, everything else is half solved. The problem is half solved. So I realized, okay, the red blood cell is a certain size. It's 10,000 nanometers in size. Okay, got it. How do I get something in there, in that red blood cell, without digestion? That became the question. And when I had that question, suddenly the mind starts to find the answers. You have to ask the right question. It's like the quality of your life is the quality of your questions. The quality of the problems you solve are based on the questions you ask, always, right? One thing like our mutual friend Vision at Mind Valley, who I was just on with last week, is so good at is asking questions, right? I'm sure you've noticed this traveling with him. He's so good at just distilling down what someone does and like grabbing the 70 or 80% and, quickly. And it's all from asking questions. So understanding that, I realized, okay, well, what's the particle size currently? And it turned out it was like 50,000 nanometers to 80,000 nanometers of a particle of a mineral that we're trying to digest, like that you would buy like at wherever, Whole Foods, could be good, like doctor only brands, whatever it was.
What was the measurement unit you used for that one? Denometers?
Nanometers.
Oh, nanometers. So 5 to 8 times bigger than the red blood cell it's trying to get inside of.
Exactly.
That's a problem.
It's a problem. So how does that ever work? Well, it's dependent on your digestive system. So you need plenty of stomach acid, which most people don't have. You need a non-leaky gut, which most people definitely have a leaky gut, and you need enough nutrition and health and repair to solve those problems somehow. And it's like chicken and the egg, cart before the horse type thing. Like, how do you solve that, right? So I realized I had to give people sort of an early win, or ability to sort of win before they won type thing. How do you do that? That's how you do it. You remove the dependency of the digestive system, and you go into the blood cells with particles that just are in that like post-digestion form, right? So yeah, from a process standpoint, we use different equipment at the end of a process to get the particle size really small. And there's a mix of a few different things I can't really talk about too much, but we're able to get it really small and really stable, and it just works. So you can take people talk about like feeling our potassium enter their body. It's like electricity entering their body. By the way, I would dilute these things with water. Like a lot of people will like maybe shoot it like a shot, have a sip of something after, or like put it in. We have an electrolyte too. It's called Upgraded Charge for that reason. Like it charges you. It's pretty cool. Pretty cool. We'll have some at the event. And what else? Yeah, those are a couple ideas.
Yeah. There was once a functional doctor I think I worked with, Dr. Steve in Orange County, California.
Good name.
Yeah. Classic, right?
Yeah.
And he had this experiment that he would do where he'd have like 30 different minerals in like just a small amount of water, and you would like swish it around in your mouth. And if it like tasted bad, that meant that you had
more.
Yeah, you needed it. And if it tasted okay, it meant
Neutral.
like you didn't need it, right?
Yeah, I would rather a hair test. So, but there are different tests I think emerging out there. Hair is a great record for what has transpired. Like hair is tissue, just like skin is tissue. That's why they call it a hair tissue mineral analysis. The problem is most people don't understand how to correctly interpret and fully maximize the interpretation from the test. And then some tests are better than others. So we package a test that sources from a couple different labs that I really like, and that ships around the world. And then we have practitioners that can go through and take our course and get certified. Because it's important to understand where you are currently, right? Either through a consultation with one of our practitioners or someone else. But regardless, like outsource it, work with someone, even if you're, Mark Hyman or Mercola. Like Mercola came to us recently to have his hair test understood. He like wanted me to, look at it, and I absolutely would have. But then I was like, hey, so I have a couple ideas. Let's brainstorm. And then he's like, well, I'm busy. I'm on book deadline. I'm cool. Well, I'm busy too. And hope you can have time to work with one of my nutritionists. Good luck. But like even the people at the top of the game know that if they don't have an expertise in the area, they don't try to become an expert. They go to an expert. So, yeah, for what that's worth, just a little thing like, hey, you can still be super brilliant. Like for all those people that think they have to do everything themselves, which I can relate. I think in my early 20s, I was there a lot. And now I'm like, hey, you're really good at this, and just like learn from them. Like so much better,
I once had a mentor, so many levels above me, who said the various levels of money, which I think is just a really important thing to understand in general, which was if you're living week to week or like paycheck to paycheck, you're probably thinking about like how or what you need to do to like get more money, right? And this could be applied to any skill or any relationship even. And if you're going month to month, you're probably thinking about like longer term strategy and like career progression. If you're thinking year to year, you might be thinking about like side hustles and investment strategies. And if you're thinking decade to decade, you're thinking about really big picture ideas. And that also goes into like legacy thinking, where someone's like, I created a technology that allows people to absorb the thing that gives us life And the first fear that goes through me is, but what if this guy stops making it? We need this technology to exist forever, regardless if Barton goes and becomes a monk in the Himalayas. Like I still want to be able to get these minerals. You know what I mean? Because if you're the only one doing it in such a way that bypasses the need to have a non-leaky gut and a great digestive tract, which all signs point to, it's probably going to get worse from here on out. And it's going to be harder and harder to have a non-leaky gut and to have a good digestion. Like, I mean, we could kind of break that down a little bit, but basically a huge reason why we have those things is because of our environments. And our environments are getting crazier and crazier in the sense of just toxic exposure, right? It's not getting better, that's for sure. Unless you're ultra wealthy and you're building out your own building, which we probably both have friends. Jesse, we saw Jesse yesterday. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Jesse's probably, maybe his kids, if they decide not to go out into the real world. But there's another question, right? Like, what if we go really extreme? We get the cleanest water in our house. We build the house only out of organic materials. Every year or so, we're going through and we're gutting it and making sure everything is clean, or we built it out of concrete to begin with or something, right? And then some kid is raised in that from 0 to 18 and then goes to NYU. Are they just going to die because they haven't had the exposure to these things?
No. So the main protection mechanism would be, so like this past weekend, I went out on some land, shot a bow that I bought recently, got it all tricked out. I grew up, hunting a lot, and just took it out and did some target practice on a friend just bought 500 acres. And we slept in teepees and slept on the ground and walked around barefoot, getting that microbiome stimulation. And just getting sun, shirt off, shooting a bow, dirt on your nails, blood on your hands, or hey, a connection to your food, a connection to the earth, clean air. Yeah, clean air, a lack of artificial light, or some way to protect against that or balance that. Sleeping on a pretty good rhythm, like all of these things just make you really robust, right? And I think one of the most important would be the microbiome, from the standpoint of, my friend Greg had his kids out there too, and they're like 5.5, they're twins, and they're just roaming around, and we're like, hey, we're shooting a bow like back behind us and stuff, but they're in the dirt, they're in the dirt, they're playing around, they're having a great time. And it's that is the real defense, I think, is having a real connection with nature. And to your point, the thing I realized a long time ago that helped me know long term this would be something that I would want to spend time on is that it was a very important problem because of this idea of soil erosion, topsoil erosion, and the lack of nutrients in our soil, and that there was really clearly no way to get around it, in that whether you're eating plants or animals that are eating plants, if the soil didn't have the nutrient to give to the plant, it's just like having a mother being deficient in certain minerals and toxic and full of heavy metals. She's going to give both of those things, or lack thereof, to her child. And then you have infants that are incessantly crying, and how do you fix it? Well, we've run hair analysis on infants, for example. But yes, you can see that whole picture of things like that, like you just talked about. That's our ecosystem: clean water, clean air, nutrient dense topsoil. All of these things are really important. And I don't know. I mean, as far as separation from, we're good. Your microbiome does increase in strength and variety when you're around other people too, traveling a lot. It can also take major hits from people, but the main buffer is just like eating a lot of different really good for you fiber sources, food sources. If you only have a couple strains of good bacteria in your gut, you don't have enough offense against the to compete with all the bad stuff in your
That kind of brings
microbiome.
me to something. You said something earlier that's really curious I'd like to dig in on.
Mhm.
You said that with enough mineral sunlight and water and body fat, the body can produce anything else that it needs. So with that in mind, and with your understanding of all these years of doing this at such a high level, what would be the ideal? Like, let's say I do my hair analysis, I dial in my minerals, I'm doing all the right things from that perspective.
Yeah.
I've got that regular sleep rhythm that you mentioned a little bit ago. I'm getting sunlight on a regular basis.
And you have to do that quarterly, I would say, if you really have
A hair
hopes
test.
of dialing in. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's one step some people miss, is just like anything else. It matters is consistency. It's like, you want to get in shape, go pretty consistently.
Definitely. And life and seasons.
Right.
And I can imagine summer versus winter, sweating versus being cold, radically different mineral demands.
Exactly. And then, are you sweating, working out more, and moving more, moving less, sleeping less, though, could be anxiety up. So like, who knows?
Oh, I've got a lot of questions that are coming from that. So let's say I am transitioning to a new workout routine for a different season, or I'm spending 3 months in Hawaii or something. How long into that new routine should I wait to do my hair test to get because it takes a little bit for my hair to actually grow to where you would get the new mineral balance?
Sure. So hair is 6 to 8 weeks of data in an inch and a half, depending on the person, how fast it's growing. So if you're really healthy, really nutrient rich, your hair is going to grow pretty quickly. Now, if your hair is short on the sides like yours is, if you go in and have that clipped, that's a pretty tight turnaround. You're looking at, I would say, under a month for sure to grow that amount of hair, and you're like an eighth an inch on the side. It's really tight. So you can do that if your hair is super long too. Obviously, for people that haven't really thought about that, I imagine as you're listening to this, you might be in your car or out for a walk right now, and you're kind of like listening, and maybe you're getting distracted by something else, notifications, phones, things like that. So just to bring you back to the present moment so that you don't have this question later if you decide to go down this path, this is something you want to pay attention to, because you'll probably have this question. You'll say, what about my hair, and it's long, and like I don't want to do this, or like I obviously don't want to have a gap or it to ever show. Of course it doesn't. There's a way to get it to do that. And there's a way to, obviously, if you have long hair, you want the hair closest to the scalp. So that inch or less closest to the scalp from multiple places on, ideally, the nape of the neck. So if you shave your head, totally fine. Underarm, pubic, good options. You can do other things as well. And hopefully that makes sense for people.
That's so fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you say ideally you'd want it near the nape of the neck, inch and a half,
or
from
less,
multiple places.
Yeah, just multiple places, so that you don't cause any like noticeable, you don't want it to show. So
you don't want like a patch.
Right. So you do a small amount, however small it takes to not show based on your hair thickness. Mine's pretty thick. Can do like a couple, like maybe 3 spots, done, and get a tablespoon of hair. I know the kit currently says 2. It's just 1. That was a mistake. So we're changing that. Whoops.
Epic.
And then the kit currently says, try to avoid treated hair. Treated hair doesn't matter except for cobalt and tin levels. Those levels don't really matter, frankly. The rookie sort of thought that a lot of people are prone to having, which is totally understandable, is that every level matters, and it doesn't. The truth is, when you start to move some of these major minerals, a lot of other things start to organize themselves because of how the whole entire universe organizes itself. I imagine deep down, I can't, I don't think we can prove that, but maybe we can pretty soon. So Yeah, what we do know for sure is when you focus on 3 to 5 different minerals in that first test, and you eat foods higher in those minerals, and you also supplement them in a way that you'll absorb, then you start to get lucky.
I know this is sort of cheating, but what are like the 3 foods that you eat all the time to just cover some of your bases with important minerals?
Yeah, I try to eat plastic bottles a lot and chalk. No, I'm kidding.
Got it. Do you melt them and then drink it? Or
I hadn't thought of that. Yeah.
you could get a lot more than that way, I think.
Right. Yeah. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger, right? Yeah. Just what else could I say? It's ridiculous. I eat entire aloe plants. Really, no.
Used tires.
That would be a lot. Yeah, that would be impressive.
One tire could feed you for so long, though.
So long, though. Yeah. And you would just not want to eat if that was your only food option. So,
well, that's how you did your 11-day fast.
Yeah, you just look at tires and you're like, I'm not that hungry yet. I don't really need to chew that much. That's, I would say, really dependent on, and it's a great question because I'm glad you asked that, because a lot of people ask something like that. And what I would say is, so we actually trademarked the phrase test, don't guess, test, don't guess, for this as a catch-all as an answer to this. Because it just depends. It depends on where you are right now, Skip, and where you'll be in 3 months is different because your needs will be different. Maybe you go through, you'll boost your energy, then your output increases, and then now you're a different place for that reason too, which we see a lot happen. We've had this woman, for example, that hadn't been running. She was a runner, but she hadn't run in like 2 years, and she was in her late 50s, and she after that first hair test, and I found this out because she did a second consultation with me, and and she's like, look, my levels probably would have moved more, but I started running 10 miles a day because I felt like I could, I was like, well, that's great, so, so there's that option too. Like you can just keep your foot on the pedal full out, and then when you get more nutrients, they just go straight out into those activities, and that's fine. Just don't expect your levels to drastically increase when your output's drastically increasing. So, so something to be aware of and thinking of. So let's say you have deficiencies in potassium. Well, then I would say, foods that you want to eat are foods that are high in potassium. So avocado being one.
Are they all?
A lot of greens.
I've heard a lot of conversations around that of, again, the bioavailability of different food items, and like certain foods. If we're just gonna throw the blanket statement that they're like, these are the organic, non-GMO farmers market version of these foods,
right.
Then you would say which ones?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm always assuming that people are going to eat organic whenever they can. Yeah, look, I mean, we're voting with our dollar always. It's probably not a new conversation for this audience because people are pretty up on it, very up on it. I think there's probably things I could learn from people listening to this podcast, but it's fascinating. So always organic, always grass fed. Like I tell my dad, who's almost 80, I'm like, get the grass fed butter, because, and I just check for listening and understanding. I'm like, because the way they do it is they put the butter out in the grass, and I just like look at him after I've been talking for like 2 minutes straight, and he's like, no, I'm following. He's like, yeah, whatever, but like, yes, okay. Grass fed butter, yeah. So anyway, super ridiculous. Yeah, ridiculous. But I mean, these choices are important, obviously. Really, it comes down to what are you low at? Yeah.
Anyways,
let's do the whole thing in this voice.
Yeah,
that's pretty good.
It's phenomenal.
Wow. We can play around with this thing. This is so fun.
Yeah.
So fun. So yeah, thinking about, what are you deficient in first? This is a great parallel to this conversation is when people are like, well, so I want to do a detox. How should I detox? I'm like, well, it depends. It's like Alice in Wonderland. It's like, well, it depends which way you want to go. What are you needing to detox? Are you high in mercury or aluminum or both? Are you high in cadmium because you smoked for a long time? Or are you high in, what are you high in? So if you don't know, then you can't take selective action. And taking general action is really a form of procrastination, frankly. It's like not willing to sit and do the proper work to focus in the area. So you can stir up things and go like, I'm just doing chelation therapy. I'm going and that doesn't really work, frankly. And it's really expensive. This is a lot more systematic, methodical approach. Minerals push out heavy metals. You can take binders as well. And this is true for people that are, by the way, if you have Hashimoto's, if you're on thyroid medication, anxiety medication, sleep medication, the good news is everything that Skip and I are talking about right now, we've had people just be able to stop taking those medications. Now, again, I have to say, talk to your doctor or whatever, but that is true. That's happened. And it happens probably more than I'm aware of. But I know people directly that are friends that have stopped taking those things. And they didn't get any special treatment. They just worked with our staff. So, yeah, for what that's worth. But yeah, detoxing specifically, eating specifically based on your results. So like, yeah, maybe it's potassium that you need. So you need 3 foods that are high in that. So I'm just always eating for, I'm eating for what I'm low in. And then I'm also, and that changes. And then I'm also supplementing when I'm fasting what I'm low in, and supplementing to support my adrenals and support my thyroid.
Wow. Incredible. Now,
with minerals, because minerals are water soluble. I wouldn't supplement anything in a fast that's fat soluble, because that wouldn't make sense, right? Like E, D, K, yeah.
You dropped a bomb right there that I have to go into. And you mentioned you're eating and you're supplementing to support your thyroid. Now, does thyroid play a big role in this whole mineral conversation? Like if I have anything wrong with my thyroid, is that a factor here?
Well, certainly the reason why you have a problem with your thyroid is based largely, I could say in part, but I would say the more bold statement of largely because of mineral imbalances or deficiencies. And I have this hypothesis that at least part of the reason why the thyroid, if not entirely, I think to say entirely, we have to also understand that the body is a place where we store emotions, and hence a lot of the stuff you talk about, and some of the things I've gotten trained into as well, like hypnosis and using certain techniques to remove trauma in a very systematic way that's repeatable, which actually we're going to do that. We're going to offer that really soon, like this week, I think. It's going live on the site with some coaches. And you basically, it's a whole nother episode really, but super cool stuff. And basically just either the problem goes away or your money back. And it's totally changed my life. So a couple different things. So like trauma is an issue, and also mineral balance. So antibodies, I believe, a big portion of that. And I don't know if anyone else has this hypothesis right now, but just seeing what I've seen and seeing people change and, like I said, get off thyroid medication. I personally don't know. And if someone hears this and knows someone, certainly DM me on Instagram, ask Barton, of anyone that's helped someone get off of thyroid medication with supplements. And I mean, there's whole protocols to reverse it. Like there's Dr. Isabella Wentz, who's a friend of a friend, a couple different ways. She has a great book called Hashimoto's Protocol, and she works with a lot of different supplements there. But one of my the thesis that I have, or the hypothesis, is that our glands are only happy when they have the raw materials to produce the hormones, because they are there to produce hormones, right? And when your thyroid can't make T3 and T4 and when it can't convert hormones, and just to back up a step, just broadly, when say the thyroid can't produce hormones, it's unhappy and it feels like dumb, essentially. And it starts letting you know through a language we don't speak very well that something's wrong. And one of the ways is it produces antibodies. And the other way is it metastasizes and you have lumps and things. And all of that's reversible, luckily. I have a post on my Instagram recently that is about my thinking around that, more detail than here, but just how people can take binders, take iodine, and other minerals too. We have something called peak thyroid that people really like, and that and our upgrade iodine together, upgrade magnesium too at night, and any other time you feel like you need it, like when you're anxious. Those combinations, and then like again, whatever else you need based on your tests and other tests that you might do. That approach really helps improve the output of hormones and improve the conversion of hormones from inactive to active, and then couple that with the minerals that you need for your adrenals, and now you really have a potent combination where you're like it's like a car where you have all the airflow you need and all the fuel you need and a good ignition source. It's like airflow and fuel, cool, great. Now you have power. So.
What are you personally most excited about right now?
This book I'm working on. Yeah.
What is this book about?
It's everything we're talking about right now, really. And I wish I could give the title away, but can't yet. And more to come, really. But hop on our email list. It's free. We put out some pretty cool blogs like 3 times a week.
Are you writing those or other people?
I write some. I don't write all, and I usually review. But we have I have someone on staff that is a really amazing nutritionist. She used to be a journalist, and we talk about different ideas and storyboard a lot of stuff. So pretty cool.
What are the sources that you've always liked or looked up to in the nutrition world? Like I used to love Precision Nutrition for all their blogs. Yeah. And I thought
Mercola early days, so it was interesting for him to reach out and and go, hey, can you help me with this hair test that I have? Like Ben Greenfield, Dave Asprey. It's like Dave's become a friend. Been on Ben's show. Those are like some of the main sources, and just a smattering of different books. Like I don't know where to start, but between 22 and 32, I read, I don't know exact number, somewhere between 500 and 700 books, read and listened to, combination of that. So there's a lot, and a lot of that too had to be business too, so I knew how to steward a good company. So yeah.
What was tougher, figuring out how to solve this 10,000 nanometer problem or the business? Oh, the fact that it takes that long to think means
I know
both.
I know. Yeah, exactly. I couldn't do the business part then, and then now it's been long enough that I'm glad that I was like fresh out of school and I was of that mindset and I could do that then. The cool thing that happens is that you don't have to like continually relive your success. Like you could be the world's top like pole vaulter, and then like 10 years go by and you're like, you haven't been pole vaulting. It's cool. You've become like an Olympian and other things, but you're no longer that. But yeah, the cool thing with figuring out a technology and a process is you only have to do it once correctly, and then it's done. So, and then you can just bake the cakes. So Yeah. So I wouldn't want to have to do that part again. I wouldn't have wanted to have to take on the enormity of building a great business and team and great culture and all the, scale and all the pressures of business then too. So it's, yeah.
Yeah. What were what are
It's a
your
lot.
favorite parts of that now?
Favorite parts?
Favorite parts of the business side now?
Oh man, I mean, we had a team meeting today where I was just like on with my entire customer service team today. And I just enjoyed it because I got to hear stories. I actually posted something to my Instagram that I just shot candidly of our Zoom call, our group Zoom call, where Deb was talking about she does some outbound calls for us, and she was talking about how she at one point, so she's lost nearly 200 pounds, not all with us, frankly, but she had hit a really hard plateau is what she said, and she's closing in on 200 pounds lost. She's broken through that plateau from, in her words, she saw one of the fasting videos I put on YouTube after she was working for us, and yeah, so like hearing things like that, and you're like, wow, the actual people in our company are having these breakthroughs. She did a 7-day fast because of that, and just did water and minerals and sunlight, and she's like transforming. I could tell so much difference since she started working for us in March or April, and now it's yeah, the end of October, so a lot of transformation and shifts and stuff. And she's like, it's like I want other people to know what I know and experience what I've experienced. Those are so like just being proud of the culture that we're building. It's great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What are you most excited about in the business in the future? Are you working on new formulations and other types of things like outside of minerals?
Yes, actually, we have something called upgraded tea, which has not been released. I haven't even talked about it publicly yet.
Do we get that? Do we get early swag? What's happening here?
Yeah, I can get you some.
What's the theory behind it?
It's not even live on the site yet. Upgraded tea is actually for men and women. So fun fact for you ladies, actually for everyone, but do you know that women actually have 10 times more testosterone than they have estrogen in their body? Fun fact. Most hormone doctors don't know that. And they're like, a hormone doctor. It turns out hormones are based largely on minerals. So if you want to optimize your hormones, which everyone that, is in the know now is like, okay, one of the reasons I'm sluggish is because of hormones, and people kind of try to go for a shortcut and like they don't really know what to do. So they just go, well, I'm going to go on hormone replacement, some bioidentical thing. If you choose to do that, if you're doing that right now, you can also just support, like keep listening. It's cool. It's totally fine. You're safe. It's cool. You can improve that through everything we just talked about. So if you're taking thyroid hormones, you can keep taking that. You can keep taking your sleep med, keep taking your anxiety, all of that. At some point, you may have a conversation where you realize that you don't feel like you need it anymore. That's a judgment call that you and your healthcare provider have to make. But we've seen people do that. So yeah, I had an ex-girlfriend that got off her anxiety medication from a supplement I haven't released yet called Upgraded Mood, which will be out soon. And that was a year ago, or a year ago that we broke up. So it's been, some of these things get worked on for a while, because I want them to be more and more, I want them to also taste good instead of people having to like dilute it and things like that. But so that's super exciting. I think that product is going to save lives. I mean, it's powerful. Like it really, really will foundationally support a person where they are in a place of like making them feel more safe by providing them the elements that allow them to do so internally. And then upgraded tea is super cool because you have a very visceral, experiential effect of it. Where like my friend Krista, who's a nutritionist, super fit, early 30s, she is doing a case study for us. She had the idea, so I can share this. She's like, you know, I do testosterone cream twice a day on my arm, she said. And she's like, I want to like not have to do that. She's like, can I take this? It's like, yeah, absolutely. So this is going to support not only testosterone production for men and women, and that stat earlier probably helps people understand that it's really important for women feeling good. Sex drive is down for women. Testosterone's down for, we know it's down for men. We hear about that all the time. Like, oh, it's half of what it was for men, you know, however long ago or whatever. Hey, also that mirrors the soil deficiency. About half nutrients are 40 to 50% less in the soil, the mineral content, if you go back 80 to 100 years. And that's just around the world. So yeah, that's something to think about. And we need people solving that, and we're trying to solve that. And we need to be like through a biodynamic approach and a lot of just, you know, we need awareness and we need practices, and smart people are working on that. I know you know that. And we also need to give birth to innovators. And the only way we can really do that is if the mothers, also the fathers too, to some extent, but the mothers particularly have plenty of minerals in the right ratios and low or heavy metals. Because just an iodine deficiency causes up to a 20-point lower IQ. And interesting fact, and Vision actually mentioned this. He said, because I told him, I said, you know, Japan eats 80 to 100 times more iodine than we do in the U.S. And he said, well, that's interesting. Those two facts together. He said, because the average IQ there is 130 and it's 100 in the U.S. on average. So there's there's kind of evidence there too, to some extent. It's you can't call it evidence, but it's an interesting correlation, certainly, right? And
so what you're saying is this upgraded tea is going to support healthy testosterone levels in men and women.
Mm-hmm.
How?
Through 5 different clinically studied ingredients.
Yeah. And those are all like proprietary, like secret ingredients?
Actually, those aren't. Those are, so that's a totally different type of product that we've ever made before. And it's just, you know, I looked at what was in the market, and I could see that there's a need for this. And I mean, this product also helps with heart health. It also helps with nitric oxide, which is the reason I take it most of the time. Because, I mean, my testosterone in my 20s was about half of what it is now. It was like in the 500s. Now it is, the last time I checked, which was like 5 months ago, it was 960. That was before I was really taking this. So I don't even know where it's at.
That's really high.
Yeah. So it's like
reference for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like
it's like 40% higher than I think the US average.
Yeah. Yeah.
Of healthy 20-something males.
Right. And that was me at 24 versus me at 35. So,
so ladies,
I mean, there you go.
I mean,
hey.
This is the guy.
Hey.
For sure.
You know, like, you know.
Are you single?
I am.
Should we put your Tinder bio in the show notes?
Oh man, that's so funny. Maybe you could dig that up somewhere. That's really funny if it still exists. Wow, where do we go from there?
Okay, here's where we go. When people fall in love with you and they want to learn way more about this and just hear all about all of these things that we've discussed in your work, how do they digitally stalk you outside of your Tinder profile?
Man, great. See, that I have an answer to. All right, so
Instagram, Ask Barton.
Yeah.
Right.
And we have a YouTube channel. At some point, I'll have my own that I'll start putting more content out on. Have some videos I could put out right now, but probably YouTube's the best place.
Is that Upgraded Formulas?
Yeah, just search Upgraded Formulas, and then that's pretty much it.
And the website.
Website, of course. Yeah, that's the main way to get all the things you need.
And that's upgradedformulas.com.
That's right.
And then the book will be coming out when?
I'm not putting a date on it anymore, but probably like February, March. Yeah.
And then when can I get my testosterone tea? Or when can they get their testosterone tea?
Let's see. Probably, when does this go live?
This will go live right before the festival.
It'll probably be for sale then. Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So hopefully by the time you're hearing this,
Yes.
you can get testosterone tea.
Totally. In fact, at the festival, I didn't even think about that.
We should make it.
Yeah, we should have it there. Yeah.
I mean, I'm totally going to cut this, but
Yeah.
if we give people this, are they just going to have sex in the middle of the festival? Is like,
Yes.
how fast does it work?
Yes. So if we had a 2-day festival by day 2,
it would be.
And I feel like we should leave this in. Yeah. So like by day 2 of the festival, if we had a 2-day festival, which was why it turns out we can't have a 2-day festival right now because upgraded tea is so effective.
Yeah, we had to nix it to one day.
Is that people would just immediately start having sex. Just every nook and cranny. Maybe not. Maybe just out in public. Who knows?
It's just one big room, to be honest.
It's one big room. Yeah.
There's an outdoor space, I suppose.
Right. Yeah. But not a whole lot of privacy. But then, when your testosterone's just skyrocketing, men and women both, attractive people, they already did their breath work. They're like fully embodied. Yeah.
They've dojoed, which the primary side effect is an increase in sensitivity, physically and otherwise.
Whoa, there you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's orgasmic in more than one way. So
a lot of things. And then we're gonna have the Stephanos and Christine workshop.
Oh yeah.
Right. So it's like the masculine, feminine, and like healing all that. So you feel so much more open.
And we're talking about it. So the conversation's already there.
And then vision amplifier.
Right.
And then you're just gonna be dreaming of like your future.
Yeah.
Of like more testosterone and more lovemaking. Yeah. And then there's going to be a party and people are going to pop like Molly Pops or something. I hope not.
Yeah.
I hope not.
Yeah.
But I know it's going to happen.
Who would do that?
I
know I would.
I would. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
Anyways, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Of course. My pleasure.